Buen día, buenos días, good morning everyone. So, the first talk will be about culture. So, it's a bit a different topic. Normally these conferences are more about tooling and how to do things, but I think personally that culture is the most important thing that you need to talk about. So, let me check, does it work? There you go. So first of all, who am I? So why I'm here, why I'm speaking to you? My name is Marc Cluet, I'm from Barcelona, but I've been in London for the last 10 years. I co-founded a consultancy there called You Can Cherry, and I organize the second biggest DevOps meetup in the world called London DevOps. And I also organize DevSecOps Days in London, so if you're around London, please feel free to come and visit us. I also organize here the DevOps Exchange Barcelona, which just started 2 weeks ago, and we have one this Wednesday if you want to come. And I've been working at many companies. I've done 13 startups. Out of the 13 startups, I think that one of them, the stock is still some value, more than the paper it's printed in, but that's fine. But I also worked at big companies like Rackspace, where I was integrating DevOps or Rackspace, Trainline as well, Canonical, where I was part of the Ubuntu server team, ASUS, helping teenage girls get their clothes, and DevOps Group as well, which is another DevOps consultancy. And I've been doing DevOps for the last 10 years. So I've been lucky enough to find people in London that were doing WebOps, as it was called back in the day, and so was lucky enough to be at the right time, at the right place. So right now I'm working for a bank, which is called Financial Society Motor Bank. It's a nationwide building society. It's one of the oldest building societies. So here it would be more like a Caixa. What they do is that they help all their members get new houses, in the sense that getting a house is still something difficult for everyone. It's the most expensive thing you'll do in your life. So Nationwide helps all these members get into that effort of building getting the first house. And of course, we're recruiting. So if for any reason you want to move to the UK, I know that the weather is not as good as here, but still, pay is good. And I said, I organize London DevOps and Barcelona. If you're around London, I know that some guys here from Capside come to the meetup from time to time. So please, feel free to come, and Barcelona as well. So first of all, DevOps, right? Just to get a bit the topic going on. So when people talk about DevOps, this is normally the kind of thing that when you go to a conference you see, right? A big loop of integration with a lot of tool names, right? All these amazing tools, all these shiny things that do stuff, but in reality, I would say, people talk too much about tooling when we need to talk more about people, right? Because what DevOps is about, in reality, it's about people. It's about you and me. It's about everyone that is working here, making things easier, making things faster, making things more pleasant, so you can wake up every day, feel energized and go to work. Then it's about all the process that surrounds these people, right? It's all the decisions, all the things that they do on a day-to-day. So there's that safeguards, these guardrails, so they can execute all this stuff, and then at the end, they have all this shiny, amazing tooling that it actually helps them to do all this work that they want to do. But for me, and I think this is very important, DevOps was always thought about the people and process, then tools. So people is always first, think about that. So one way that it's fairly famous to talk about DevOps is the CALMS method. I won't say that I invented this. This has been around for 8-9 years, more or less. So the CALMS process, it's first of all about culture, because I said culture is what people create, and this is the main part of DevOps. Then it's about automation. So when in doubt, when you have to do any kind of task twice, write a script, automate it, even if it takes a bit more effort, it's worth the effort, because at the end of the day, you can have an integral end-to-end automation scenario when you don't have to do anything, so that's great. It's about lean. So lean in the sense that, oops, sorry, I went too fast. Culture, automation, there you go. It's about lean. So lean not in the sense that to go fast, but in the sense that if you want to build a car and you have no experience as a mechanical engineer, you don't start building a car. You start first building a bicycle, then you build a motorbike, then you build a quad. Then at the end, when you have all this knowledge from all these iterations of building, you finally build a car. Then it's also about measurement. So it's important. Metrics are very important, because not only because it helps us detect any kind of anomalies or errors, but also because they help improve, they help take business decisions, they are rich. So anything that you need to do, anything that moves, measure it, make certain that you have a metric on it, because you never know when you need it. And it's also about sharing. So it's not only important to be knowledgeable about things, it's not only important to be one of the guys that know how to do this or that, it's also important to share the message. Share with everyone that needs it, share with everyone that is not at the same level as you. Make certain that you share the joy of all this knowledge and all this discovery. So if you have to group all of these, all of these define the DevOps values, right? And if you look at them in categories, so the automation and the lean, it's all about optimizing that process. In the sense, how can we go faster? How can we learn faster? How can we fail better? And the sharing and measurement, it's about learning the outcomes of everything that you're doing. So the first part of the talk is all about building a DevOps team, right? So as a DevOps manager, in the case for me, that I have to go in and build a DevOps team, how do you do that, right? Do you go and talk in city bars to people that you don't know? It doesn't really work like that. So certainly the thing that it doesn't work like, it's this. And this is actually a real web page. I've hidden the URLs just for security purposes. But the problem with DevOps is that it's such a hard word that people are using it for everything. They're using DevOps for tooling. They're using DevOps for infrastructure engineers. They're using DevOps for every single thing they can think about. And there's people like this, right? Like this poor American chap that says he's your DevOps recruiter because he's recruiting on DevOps. It's like, all right, if you find the web page, it's an absolute car crash. But it's important, right? So the recruiters and other people in the industry want to stretch the meaning of DevOps to go into automation and tooling so they can sell more stuff to you, and they can sell more consultancy to you, and they can sell more recruitment to you. Or, in the other sense, as soon as you add DevOps to your CV, suddenly you get 5K more. So it's like, why not add DevOps? I don't know what the hell it's about, but I'll just add it to the CV. So oftentimes, you find companies that want to embrace DevOps creating what they call the DevOps teams. And they always say that between quotes, right? So that sounds kind of suspicious. And some of them, they do even worse. They call it the cloud team. Because, of course, cloud means DevOps. So if we want to go to the cloud, we're going to build a cloud team that does DevOps. So it's amazing. I would say this is really an anti-pattern. This really doesn't work. So a good friend of mine called Matthew Skelton and Manuel Paes, they created this book called DevOps Patterns, which I really recommend. And this is one of the anti-patterns, right? You create a new DevOps teams that sits between dev and ops and don't talk to anyone. They just start creating tools. They just start creating these amazing things, write Terraform stuff, and then both operations and developers go and say, who are these guys? What the hell are they doing? They're not creating that incentive. They're not creating that communication. So that doesn't work, really. The thing that works, though, is something more like this. So if you're embracing DevOps at the beginning, you can create a DevOps team, but with a very clear objective. You say, this team will only exist for 6 months. We'll start the automation. We'll start off that. As soon as we are in a place where we actually have stuff to show, the team will disband and integrate with Dev and Ops, right? So that's a good approach, because at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's about that communication, all that stream of conversation happening. And with time, and hopefully, I would say with a lot of effort, because I would say developers are more into creating new stuff, pushing the envelope, make certain that the company is always at the front edge. And operations is all about the stability, right? Make certain that things are stable. They don't break up. So in effect, those two are two opposite forces, but they can work together. So at the end of the day, you want this, right? You want both developers and operators working very closely together, very integrated, in the same sprints, in the same methods, using the same boards. So everybody knows what's happening. So once you have that, you can start talking about DevOps team models. This one, for example, is the one that we use at Trainline, where you have different departments or different groups based on different practices. So you had the automation engineers that did the operating systems as well. You had all the network engineers that did automation on the networking side. You had security engineers that did all the security of the platform, and all the support engineers that were supporting all the different teams, all of them working in the same space together. And then we spoke constantly with all the developer teams. And we did all of these directly or through the governance framework that we had. So we had very strict, clear rules on how to go to production, what kind of things we needed to do. And everybody understood that, so we were all in the same game. Maybe I'm missing one. There you go. Another one that is quite famous is the one from Spotify. So Spotify, they created this concept called tribes and squads. And what they do is that in order to ensure that you have a good progression in engineering, you belong to a tribe, you have an engineering manager that is there to help you progress. But at the same time, inside the tribe, you create squads based on projects. So these squads were very short-lived. They live maybe 2 or 3 sprints, so they might live up to 45 days. And once they deliver the project, the squad disbands, and then they create another one for another project. And this works very well for them, and I think it's a very good example of things that work, in the sense that you are spreading the knowledge, everybody is exposed to different projects, to different things. So it works very well. We can also talk about SRE. So there's a lot of people that say the SRE and DevOps are 2 different things, which I think are different contraptions of the same. SRE was invented at Google, and as a Google thing, it was invented for massive scale, because Google doesn't do things for 2 persons. They do things for millions. So I would say it works very well, and it has a very good point of view for bigger organizations. I could start talking about SRE, but that would take all the time. So I'll just point you to this amazing book that is written actually by Google engineers who are SREs, and then you can have a look at that more in depth. But at the end of the day, for me, the important thing is that people that go and say, oh, this Spotify model works very well, I'm going to implement this exactly as it is in my business, without looking at what my business does, what are the objectives, what's the people that is working in that business, right? What their skills, their needs, that normally doesn't work. So I would say use the DevOps team models as something to inspire you, something that you can learn from, but don't copy them nilly-willy, because most of the times it doesn't work. And I've seen that in big companies where they try to implement something as it is and it has crashed. So once you have your DevOps team, you have your DevOps team pattern, you have recruited some people that I would say they don't look like psychopaths, so that's fine. Then you need to start reinforcing those DevOps patterns, right? And those are the ones that I would say there's not a lot that people that talk about them. Oh, there you go. So the first one is increased communication. So this is normally the scene, even if this is on the street, this is normally the scene in any engineering team. Everybody's looking at the screen, working in silence, not talking to one another. So suddenly, there's a new feature or there's something that's happening. People don't know what's happening because there's no communication. And this is the hardest problem to solve, at least in my experience. It's important to get people communicating. And I would say it's a especially hard problem with engineers, because we've gone deep into engineering normally because, or at least in my case, because I don't like talking to people too much. So I try to just keep myself to my screen, but it's something that you need to do, right? You can do things like chat ops, for example, which is quite famous nowadays, in order to increase that communication, but you need to be quite strict about it. And I would say one of the best examples that I've seen about chat ops was the time that I was working at Canonical doing Ubuntu. Canonical has a private IRC where every single employee, from the president to the marketing guy to the salesperson to the personal assistant, everybody needs to be on that IRC. All the meetings are happening on that IRC, all the notes are taken on that IRC, all the collaboration is happening that way. So even if you're in the same office, I would say it's encouraged that you talk through the tools that are at hand, mainly because in Canonical, only 10% of the people work in an office, 90% of the workforce works from home. So if you start talking to one another in the office, 90% of the team that you're working in won't get into that conversation, won't be able to feedback. So think about that. Think about the model and think about people that are working from home. What kind of things do you need to do to ensure that they are part of the conversation and they are able to contribute to what you're doing? Another thing that you can do is Brownbag Sessions. You need to be quite consistent about it. So who here has done Brownbag Sessions before? Anyone? Yeah? Some people? Cool. So a Brownbag Session is called like that because normally in America, when you buy your lunch, you get that into a brown paper bag. Then you get your lunch, you sit all together in front of a big screen, and somebody talks about the topic for 30 minutes while you're having lunch. And it's for learning, it's for that feedback in learning, right? So it can talk about anything, last project they've done, or this new technology, or the conference that they went to. Anything and everything. In the companies that I've been in, normally this happens once a week. So one day a week is the Brownbag Day week. So everybody goes, gets lunch, comes back, and then they sit down to see someone talking about something interesting. The other thing is pair programming. Pair programming sounds risky in the sense that a lot of companies, when you talk about pair programming, say, so you're putting two guys with two full wages, working in one single thing with one single screen. That sounds a waste of money, right? Because one of them is doing nothing. But in reality, when you do pair programming and you're good at doing pair programming, the speed of delivery of that code or that project is normally more than twice the speed of a single person. It takes some time to get there. It's not something immediate, but it works very well. And I would recommend everyone to try pair programming, but not only try it, but stick with it for, let's say, a couple of months at least, because it does wonders. It works very, very well. The other thing is blameless culture. And this one is also difficult because there's a lot of companies that are built on pointing the finger at someone and saying, that person did this. And that's the way they operate. And I've worked in some of those personally. So it's very difficult for them to understand that whenever a problem happens, it's not someone. It doesn't matter who pressed the key. It doesn't matter who was there. It's a problem for everyone, and it's a problem for everyone to solve. So blameless culture is very important because you better catch that. So it's important because we have to share the vulnerability, right? When you have a problem, it's a vulnerability for the whole company. It's not only you. And one way of doing that, for example, is create post-mortem sessions. Every single time there's a problem, you make the time to sit down for 30 minutes and go through everything. And go through everything in a way that is completely impersonal, in the sense that not this person did that. It's like, we did this. We pressed enter, and this happened. Because that's the best way for people to be encouraged to talk publicly about vulnerability, because it's not something easy for everyone. I mean, it's always difficult to admit that you did something wrong, right? It's not nice. So we try to hide it naturally. So it's something that I would say it's important that people feel encouraged to share it, because otherwise this can happen again, and this will happen again unless there's something done about it. And from the post-mortem sessions, you normally create toil. So you create all these backlog items that you need to work on, you categorize them, and you ensure that all these post-mortems are publicly available. So normally one way that we do that is through a code repository where we have in Markdown data all the post-mortems. So anybody in the company can go and see exactly when we went wrong and how we went wrong. Because I said, it's all about sharing that vulnerability and ensure that there's that sense of trust. It's like, yeah, we failed. Yes, this did go wrong, but yes, we learned from it, and here's the thing that we learned from. So once we are here, the next question is, what does a DevOps manager do, right? So as a DevOps manager, what do I do in the team? So if you look at the traditional, and I'm sure you've seen these many places now, Traditional teams, they have this project manager slash team lead that goes around and says, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing the other thing, and gives work to everyone, and then everyone just comes back with the work done. So in a way, it's a coordinator and handler of work. Where in Agile teams and in DevOps teams in general, they are self-organizing. They say, I'm going to take this, I'm going to do that, because it's all about accountability, right? It's all about making certain that people are doing the right thing, and whenever they say, I'm doing this, they are taking a personal commitment to deliver that by a certain timeline. And the manager sits there as servant leader slash facilitator. And then you go, okay, I'm a manager. I cannot do much about the team. The team self-manages itself. So, yeah, this is fine, right? No, I'm responsible for everything, but no worries. It's fine. You go ahead. But in reality, what kind of things does a manager do, right? So first of all, it's inspire. So normally, I would say the manager of a DevOps team is the carrier of the vision and the mission of the team. Is the person that knows where the company is going, where the roadmap is going. And that doesn't mean that it's hidden from everyone else. It's public. But it's normally the person that keeps everyone focused on the objective. And doing that by encouraging people, inspire them, and be clear about the team objectives for the next sprint, for the next month, for the next 6 months. The next thing is be supportive, protect people, right? Because whenever there's change, that change creates tension, or whenever there's a failure, that failure creates tension. People in the company, C-level people, or the managers get nervous. They start asking questions. And the last thing you want is one of the big managers goes straight to one of your guys in the team and ask, why did you do this? Because this goes clearly against the blameless culture, right? But this is the kind of thing that big organizations will do. They will go straight to one person and say, why did you do that? And it's the completely wrong thing. So you're there to protect and support all your team. You're also there to nurture the team. And by nurturing the team, I want to talk about this story. I'm a bit obsessed lately with the moon lunar landings, because in 1 month it will be the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission. So I've been listening to podcasts, watching movies. One of the things that was impressive is that this is the control room for the Apollo 11 mission. The average age of engineers in this room is 27 years. So almost everyone in this team came straight out of university. They didn't go through an interview process because they had to hire a lot of people. So what they did is that they checked the skills they had. They checked if they did some background check, I'm sure some FBI or whatever, to check if he was a proper American. And they just hired him. No interviews, no questions. So they have all this team, and everybody's responsible for part of this. And especially the people that were on life support. The life of the astronauts were in the hands of these guys, these 27-year-old guys. And one of the things that the managers did do is that we're not going to take any decision. We're not going to tell people what to do, because they are specialized in all these different things. They are better suited than us to take the decisions. So all the decisions were taken directly by engineers. Are we talking about life or death decisions? We're talking about decisions that would cost millions of dollars if they were wrong. But that's the kind of thing that you need to do. You need to empower your team, ensure that people claim responsibility, take the decisions, whatever they right or wrong, because it's all a learning process. I can tell you that the first Apollo mission wasn't really a success. The crew actually died on the first one. So it's a learning process, and that learning process, in this case, did cost lives. But nowadays, if you look at an engineer that is 27 years old, would you entrust them to actually maintain the whole platform? Possibly not. These guys took us to the moon. They literally took us to the moon, 27 years old. So it's pretty amazing. It's also important to celebrate success, right? So whenever there's failure in the team, the failure is shared. The manager takes the failure for the company, but the failure is shared across the whole team. But whenever there's success, and this is very important, the manager doesn't take the success. A good manager shouldn't be going, oh yeah, I did this, I'm awesome, thank you very much. You wouldn't do this without me. No. You're as good as your team is. So normally, what you need to do is celebrate the individual's success. Celebrate that that person did this awesome thing, or that these two persons did that awesome thing. Because you want to encourage people. You want to share that success around. Another thing that you do is challenge ideas. So you are the sounding board of the team. Normally, when you're the manager, not only means that you are older, but it also means that you have a bit more experience. So you are the sounding board of the team. You need to ask the tough questions. Because if you don't ask the tough questions, whenever that project or that piece of software gets in front of the eyes of someone several ranks above you, they will ask the tough questions. So you need to ensure and prepare everyone for that, ensure that everyone is ready and compromise with what they're doing, and make sure that any kind of idea or project is able to float on its own. Because once it's out of your hands, anything happens. And if it's not right, or if it doesn't work, it's a failure, right? So you need to prepare people to not fail in this case. And you also need to keep people honest. We've all seen, I'm guilty of that myself, of saying, oh yeah, this thing that I'm doing, it will work immediately, I will do it in an hour, in one line of Python that nobody understands, and it will be awesome, so no, don't worry about it. And then you deliver it 3 days later and it doesn't work. So it's important. You need to keep people honest, because everyone has the best intentions in mind, but they also always think that they can do things faster and better than they can actually do. And the last one is recruitment. So you need to go around, go to conferences, say that we're recruiting, like I'm doing right now. And you need to recruit people, right? And that doesn't mean that you need to go and recruit everyone yourself. What that means is that you need to ensure that the best people in your team are the ones that are doing the interviews and are asking the hard questions for several reasons. One of them is this thing that has been demonstrated, right? That the top-level people will only hire top-level people, or people with top-level potential. If you send the junior graduate and they don't have enough experience, anything will sound all right. So they need to have that experience, or they need to have that background to be able to hire people. Also, as a manager, you need to talk with the recruiters. Make sure the job specs are very clear. Make sure that they don't go to LinkedIn and they start doing some keyword search and send to someone that is a Python developer, oh yeah, we're doing automation engineering. Since you know Python, I'm sure you're doing that. So that kind of thing, you need to avoid that, right? And you need to send your people as well, because you need to measure the culture fit. And that's the most difficult thing to measure, but the most important thing to measure as well. Because everyone in your team is part of that success, is part of that culture. If you add someone in the team that doesn't fit, it will be noticeable immediately, and it's a bad problem to solve. And the last one that you do is that you send people home. And what I mean by that is that not that you fire people, you also have to do that, but that's the last resource. But you need to ensure that everybody keeps a good life and work balance. You don't want heroes. You don't want people that work until 3 a.m., solve the problem without anybody else around, and then the next day all the rest of the thing goes like, oh yeah, okay, he solved it, so I guess I have nothing to do now. You need to ensure that everybody keeps that work-life balance. You need to ensure that there's no heroes in the team. Because as soon as you have a hero in the team, you have a problem. And don't get me wrong, I love heroes because they solve stuff, but it's a problem for the rest of the team. You're disencouraging the rest of the team to take responsibility or to step up when there's problems, because the hero will do it. It's fine. So that's what you need to do. Send people home. Say, stop it. Go home. I know you can save the day. It's fine. I'll risk it. I'm sure someone else will be able to help it, or we can do it as a team. And the last thing you need to do is talk to the business. And this is difficult. So most companies' leadership looks like this. Talk to them about Ansible, or about Terraform, or about Kubernetes. I'm sure they will be interested. They will understand exactly what you're saying. They will ask you those questions, right? No, it doesn't happen. So to these people, unless you're a technical company like Google, and even then, to these people, IT stuff sounds like gibberish. It's like, rah, 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 rah. It's like, okay, how much does this cost me? That's what I'm interested in. Right? So you need to make things clear for them, clear so they understand what you're doing, and what is the benefit, the business objective. What does it do for the business? Rather than saying, oh yeah, we're installing Kubernetes because it's awesome. They'll go, I don't care if it's awesome, it's costing me 1 million. So you need to say, this will actually shorten the path to life, and this will do this, this, and that, so we can go faster to the market and optimize our cost base. Like, oh yeah, that's something I understand. Going faster to life, making sure that we're faster than competition, that's something I really like. So it's important, right? And normally, as techies, you go like this to the board meeting, and they will look at you, because everybody will be wearing suits. But not you. Suits are not cool, right? So they will look at you like, yeah, 2 coffees, please. Make it fast. It's like, no, I'm actually the CTO. Oh, all right, sit over there. It's fine. Just listen and learn. So you will not be accepted to the table unless you show value. And you show value by showing what they actually want, in the sense that you need to show what the business needs. What are the business objectives? What are the business gains from what you're doing, right? You need to show that value. Unless you do that, you will just be that guy in the corner that looks a bit weird, talks kind of stuff that we don't know, but he's useful because we keep making money. So nobody will actually listen to you when you need to do stuff that actually you need extra budget for, or you need to take a risky position because you need to make certain that the company advances. So things that you need to do for talking to business, I highlighted some of them. So first of all is roadmap planning. The funny thing is that roadmap planning and Agile, so you think about it. Agile, you do things just in time, you define things just in time. What I'm doing in 6 months? I don't know. I hope something good. So you say that to the business and you're gone. So you need to create that roadmap, right? So what you do normally, if you want to do roadmaps in an agile way, is that you create a roadmap that is fairly certain for the next 3 months, but then as you go further back in time, you are less and less certain of things, right? But that at least gives you a vision. It gives you an objective, something to look for. So the business knows that in 1 year you'll be doing Kubernetes into different regions, for example. That's an objective. That's something that can be in the roadmap, right? The next one is budget forecasting. And again, Agile. How much money do I need to do Agile? I don't know. 1 million? Give me what you have and I'll do something. It's difficult, right? So it's difficult. You need to ensure that you size up to the right size. The problem is that if you oversize, yes, you'll be delivering things slightly faster. That doesn't mean they will be faster. Like, it's not linear. It's like 10 engineers will deliver more than 9 engineers. Most of the times it's not the case. And you need to ensure that that budget fits with the business. Because if you go like, oh yeah, give me $4 million, and in 6 months I'm going to deliver this. If you're not delivering that, it's $4 million a day through to the bin. And that's your responsibility. So it's a nice position to be in. Enterprise architecture. Again, Agile, we have metamorphing Kubernetes clusters with things that can go in and out at any point in time. You do an audit. You do PCI compliance, credit card checks, GDPR. They'll want a friggin' diagram. Because if you tell them, oh yeah, we create things and destroy things on demand, it's like, yeah, fine, where's the vision? I need that in order to be able to do the audit. And it's a bit of an anti-pattern, it's a bit of odd world, but you need to ensure that you do that, and that you do that not only by yourself, but you do that in coordination with the rest of the team. Everybody knows where things should be. You put boxes rather than individual things, like cattle, not pets, right? and you ensure that you define that as clearly as you can in the most fuzzy way possible. So that's the only way I've seen to be able to pass compliance and audits. And it works. The auditor will look at you with a funny face, but they do actually accept these kind of things. Then the next important decision is build or buy. As an engineer, you want to build everything. You want to build a new Jira, because let's accept it, Jira sucks. You want to build a new Kanban board. You want to build all these things. The important thing is that thing that you're building primary to the business? Is that the thing that will actually make you money? Or is it nice to have? And that's the kind of thing that normally as engineers we struggle. We find difficult to decide which way are we going. So it's very, for me, it's very black or white in that sense. If it's not primary to the business, if it's not making you money, buy it. Because you don't want to spend engineering time building something that you shouldn't be building. Then it's governance and oversight. I would say in startups, this is something that is woefully ignored for good reasons. But in bigger businesses, and especially in a financial institution, it's an integral part of what you do. Everything needs to be according to governance. Anything needs to have oversight. Everything needs to be controlled, because not having that governance is the difference between you working as a financial institution and you showing on BBC News, Sky News, The Guardian, The New York Times, and the Financial Authority giving you £100 million fee for your failure. And that happened. So I don't know if you guys know this bank called TSB. It's an English bank. And they had a problem when they were doing an upgrade of their online banking. It worked so badly that their online banking platform was down for 2 weeks. All the customers from TSB couldn't access their statements, couldn't do transactions. For the first 2 days, not even the telling machines worked, so you couldn't even get money out of your account. And it was all due to an IT problem. That's the kind of thing that you don't want. So governance and oversight are important. And I would say, even as a startup, it's important to have clear that at some point, you will have to do this, because as soon as you go through B rounds, C rounds, D rounds, investors will start to ask you about this. Because the bigger you become, the riskier you become, the more governance and oversight people we want to have. And the last one I said is risk control. And when I'm talking about risk control, it's more than everything else about the blast radius, right? So whenever there's a problem, what things will this problem affect? How this problem will actually make things go bad? And if you design your software, you design your architecture to ensure that you reduce the blast radius of problems, you're normally in a good place. And I said these would mainly be applied to everything. I think blast radius is one of the biggest problems that any engineering company or any engineering project has. So I talk about building a DevOps team. I've talked about what the DevOps Manager do. But the last thing I want to talk about is how you transform into DevOps organization, because most of the people are not lucky to just start in a new organization and goes, yeah, we're doing Agile, we're doing Kanban, we're doing everything from day one. A nationwide building society, it's 130 years old. So as you can imagine, DevOps was not around. So what kind of things do you need to do to transform your organization to do more DevOps, or to transform them into a DevOps organization? First of all, it's very important to know what good looks like. So if you guys read the DORA State of DevOps report, they publish this every single year. And they ask questions to all these different engineers, to all these different companies, because they want to understand what good looks like in the DevOps world, right? What good looks like for companies. And they want to know what business benefits does DevOps give, right? So this year they created this new elite, which I think elite is a bit of a woeful name, but this elite category, where you have companies that are deploying on demand many times a day, maybe 100 times a day, 200 times a day. The lead time for change is less than an hour, which I think that's the incredible, right? From idea to deploying that, minutes. It's pretty amazing. The time to restore service is less than an hour, and the change failure rate, 0% to 15%. So most of the time, not only they are delivering faster to production, also with less errors, which is something that everyone can aim to. And I said all the rest of companies, they are normally, if a company is trying to transform into DevOps, they won't be an elite company, I can tell you that for certain. So all of them will be in another one of the stages, so you need to help them go across. And one of the things that it's important is that any kind of change creates tension, right? So the way I see this is that if you look at people, processes, and tools, I normally see them as these three levers, and they are all connected with rubber bands. So if you start pushing people up, that creates tension with process. Because the more people become agile, the more process becomes a problem. Until you solve process, then the tooling will become a problem, because then process goes up, and it will create tension with the tooling. So it's important to think about that, right? So you need to advance in all of them, but you need to advance in all of them at the same time to create the less amount of tension possible. But I said, remember this, people is always first. It's all about the people you have. It's all about how people want to work in an agile way, and it's a lot less about the tools. I've seen a lot of companies that go, oh yeah, we're doing Kubernetes because I heard it's very good. It's like, does your team want to do Kubernetes? Have somebody ask them? Do they know how to do that? Are they prepared for all the things that this change will have? So these are the kind of things that you need to prepare for. Another important thing is that change takes time. I was lucky enough to have a manager called Taylor Rhodes, ex-Marine captain. The guy was like, yes, sir. Knew the name of everyone at the company. And everyone at the company, I'm referring to 1,500 people, knew everyone by name. And he told me one day, it's like, you want to do change? Think about change as trying to turn a big boat, like the Queen Elizabeth II that you can see here. You can turn a big boat, yes, certainly. It takes a lot of time. If you try to turn a big boat like this fast, it will actually break. You will sink the boat. So change takes time. And the bigger the company is, the more time change takes. So it's something to have in mind. So if you're trying to change a company, don't be frustrated if things don't go as fast as you would like. Because remember, change takes time and perseverance. You cannot turn a big boat in 1 minute. It's also important to identify your champions. Identify the people that are passionate about what you're doing, and they are passionate about some certain things that you're doing. Encourage them, empower them, ask them to go and talk to the rest of the business. Once they become the de facto experts of whatever they're talking about, be it Kubernetes, or be it people, or be it teams, or communication, ask them to spread that knowledge. Ask them to do Brownbag Sessions, to go sit with other teams. Because champions are the real change makers. They are the people that will encourage and inspire people to do things. Because I can tell you this, management can inspire, but it cannot inspire as another one of your peers being excited about this. And the most important one, failure is fine. Failing is okay, it's not a problem. We need to make failure not scary. So there was this thing like move fast and break things. I would say that I'm not completely agreeing with that. I would say it was more fail fast and learn faster. Because the sooner you fail, the sooner you learn how to succeed. And just remember those guys at NASA, they failed big time, but they got the man to the moon. If they didn't fail, they might not have taken everyone to the moon. Right? They might not have succeeded. Failure is one step towards success. And especially if you're in a startup, if you're not going fast enough that you are scared, you're going slow. So have that in mind. You need to be at that point where you're scared every single day, but excited, right? Not the wrong kind of scared. So lastly, I leave you with some books to read, because I like reading books from time to time. I would say these three will help you become a more efficient DevOps manager and understand the scope and scene of DevOps, right? especially Accelerate, is quite interesting. It talks about the DevOps of State report in a very scientific, statistical way and takes conclusions out of that. And a seat at the table from Max Schwartz talks about exactly what I was talking about, of gaining respect and gaining that seat in the board table. Make certain that you're heard. And that's it. Thank you very much.